So for this one, we're trying to figure out what's a function and what isn't a function. And so there's an easy way to do it, but here's what I want you to write down because it'll make it a lot easier. But functions, I'll type it up. Functions, no repeating x's. Okay. Functions, x's repeat. Okay. And there's a couple ways we could test that. All right. So we'll slide it over here so you can kind of see it. So basically, one way to check that is what we call the vertical line test. And the vertical line test is pretty simple in the sense that you can draw a vertical line on a graph, like if you have the graph, up and down, up and down. So if I take and draw a vertical line on a graph and it crosses more than once, it's not a function. So if I draw a vertical line on this one, how many times does it cross? Just one time. And you should probably write this down. Okay. One time equals a function. Okay. So essentially, because that only crosses one time, it's a function. Okay. Same.
You can just write down a line
anywhere. So if I draw a vertical line here, it crosses one. There isn't a point anywhere on this one. If I draw a line that goes straight up and down, where it crosses more than once. So this one crosses one time, so it's a function. Okay. But now watch this one, this next one. If I draw, and it only has to be one spot on the graph. How many times does that cross? Twice. And really what I should do is I should say more than once, right? In this particular case, it crosses 2 times, but if it crosses more than once, it's not a function. Okay, and you'll see why in a second. So let's do this graph. Again, if I draw a line, and if I draw a line over here, anywhere that I draw a vertical line, it only crosses one time, right? So here it only crosses one time. Here it only crosses one time. But on this other one, if I draw a line right here, it crosses here. It crosses here, right? Crosses here, 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 multiple times.
Oh, because the line. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And also, if you graph this, here's the really weird thing about this. If I graph this point, it's -1, 4. And then this point here is -1, 3. And then another point that exists on the line is -1, 2. What do you notice about the x's at that particular point? They repeat. So you would say repeating x's. So that's what the vertical line does. The vertical line test lets you know that you have repeating x's, because that only occurs on something that's not a function. If we go up here, wherever I cross this line, if I cross the line here, right, and here, that would be like, I think that's the point 1, 3. And over here, it's 1 comma -3, right?
So you're just counting down to
Yeah, so that means I'm going to go over 1 and then down 1, 2, 3. This is the x value, and this is the y value. Okay? So any point on the grid, we start at the origin and we go over 1, up 3 to get to this point, and we go over 1, down 3, right? So yeah, I probably should have remembered or reminded you of that. If you go up or down, this is the y-axis. Over here, if you go to the right, this is the x-axis. It's positive. If you go to the left, it's negative. That's how you get the positive or negative. So these are all -1 because I start here and I go in the negative x direction, 1 unit, and then I go up so many spaces. So this point, I go over 1 to the left and I go up 4. So it's -1 comma +4. Okay. So now here's another thing that's interesting on this. If I draw the line here, same thing, it crosses like a gazillion times. So because it crosses so many times, it crosses here, and it crosses here, and here, and here. It is not a function because the x's are repeating. Okay.
So that's basically what I was asking.
Yeah, on the graph part. So now the next part are the table of values. So if we look at the table of values, if it is a function, that means the x's cannot repeat, right? So this doesn't, I don't know, when I filled this out before, you're supposed to pick a number here to make this up. So pick a number up here that isn't 0, isn't -5, and isn't 2. Well, I could put 7, right? I could say, well, let's do -2, right? So I'm going to say -2, and you just make up a number. I mean, there's a pattern there, I'm sure, but it doesn't really matter. And then that's a function because there isn't a repeating x.
Oh, okay.
On this one, you could do the same thing. You could say -3, comma, -6. It doesn't matter. The x's don't repeat. I have a 0, I have a -3, I have a -1, I have a +3. Now, not a function means I got to pick a number that repeats. If I put a 2 in here, I've got this 2, and I've got this 2. The y values don't necessarily mean anything. Does that make sense?
At 17.
I know, it wasn't in the list. I'm just making up stuff.
Oh.
We'll put 14. That's good that you're paying attention, but it doesn't really matter what the y values are.
Oh, okay.
All right. Now, you pick a number that we'll put in here to make it not a function.
Like I can pick any numbers.
Yeah, I'll pick from up here.
3, or is it 1? Or
No.
can we not use one that we already used?
No, that's fine. You could use 3, and then, I don't know, what do you want to put for y? It
7 again?
Sure. It doesn't matter if the y's repeat.
Okay.
But because you have x equals 3 and you have x equals 3, if I were to graph that, it would cross twice at x equals 3. So that's not a function. Cool.
Oh, that was kind of simple.
Yeah, it's not hard, but it takes a little bit of thinking.